It was a dark and stormy night. Rain pounded against the windows of the small rural train station, echoing the nervous hearts of the few passengers gathered inside. The old worn-out clock on the wall ticked slowly, its hands moving with an agonizing sluggishness. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and anticipation. Among the waiting passengers was a young woman named Clara. She had long, curly brown hair and wide, green eyes that darted around nervously. Clara was on her way to visit her sick grandmother in a distant town. She clutched her ticket tightly, her fingers trembling. This was no ordinary journey. There were whispers about the midnight train she was about to board, whispers of disappearances, ghostly apparitions, and a cursed journey. An old man sitting in the corner noticed Clara's anxiety. He had a wrinkled face and a kind smile, though his eyes held a hint of sorrow. "A first time on the midnight train?" he asked, his voice soft and comforting. Clara nodded, her throat dry. "Yes. I've heard the stories. Are they true?" The old man sighed deeply, his gaze drifting to the window. "As some say, the train is haunted. They speak of a ghost conductor and passengers who never return. But these are just stories to frighten children. Keep your wits about you and you should be fine." Just then, the shrill whistle of the approaching train pierced the air, sending shivers down Clara's spine. The station master, a stern-looking man with a bushy mustache, announced the arrival. "Ye all aboard the midnight train to Ravenwood." Clara took a deep breath, steeling herself. She glanced at the old man, who nodded encouragingly, and then stepped onto the platform. The train before her was an ancient locomotive, its paint chipped and peeling, giving it an eerie, ghostly appearance. She hesitated for a moment before stepping onto the first carriage. Inside, the train was dimly lit, the flickering lights casting long shadows that danced across the walls. The air was cool, and an unnatural silence hung over the place, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Clara found an empty seat and sat down, her heart pounding in her chest. As the train lurched forward, Clara peered out of the window, watching the station disappear into the darkness. The rain continued to pour, blurring the landscape outside. She felt a sense of foreboding, as if the train was carrying her not just to another town, but to another world altogether. Clara tried to relax, but sleep eluded her. The train rattled along the tracks, each jolt and creak sending a fresh wave of anxiety through her. The other passengers were an odd assortment of people, an elderly couple whispering to each other, a businessman absorbed in his newspaper, and a young boy clutching a teddy bear. Despite their normal appearance, there was something unsettling about them. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were all hiding something. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the carriage into darkness. A collective gasp echoed through the train, followed by nervous murmurs. Clara's heart raced as she strained to see in the dim light. A faint, ghostly glow began to emanate from the end of the carriage. It was the figure of a man, dressed in an old-fashioned conductor's uniform, his face pale and expressionless. "Tickets, please," the conductor said, his voice hollow and echoing. He moved slowly down the aisle, inspecting each passenger's ticket. When he reached Clara, she handed over her ticket with trembling hands. The conductor's cold fingers brushed against hers, sending a chill through her body. He examined her ticket for a moment before handing it back. "Welcome aboard, Miss Clara. Enjoy your journey." His eyes bore into hers for a moment longer than necessary, and then he moved on. Clara's mind raced. How did he know her name? She looked around at the other passengers, but they seemed oblivious, as if they had accepted this ghostly apparition as normal. Clara tried to calm herself, telling herself it was just a trick of the light or her imagination playing tricks on her. The lights flickered back on, and the train resumed its steady rhythm. Clara took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She decided to explore the train, hoping to find some answers. She stood up and made her way to the next carriage. As Clara walked through the train, she noticed the atmosphere growing colder and more oppressive. The carriages were filled with eerie silence, broken only by the occasional whisper of the wind outside. She entered a carriage that appeared to be a lounge, with plush, red velvet seats and dim golden lamps. In the corner sat a man with a newspaper, but as Clara approached, she saw that his eyes were blank, staring straight ahead. She shuddered and moved on. The next carriage was a dining car. Tables were set with fine china and silverware, but there were no passengers in sight. A sense of unease grew within Clara as she continued her exploration. She reached the end of the dining car and found a door marked private. Curiosity getting the better of her, she pushed the door open. Inside was a small room filled with old photographs and newspaper clippings pinned to the walls. Clara recognized some of the faces in the photographs. They were passengers from the train. She scanned the newspaper clippings and her heart skipped a beat. They were all reports of missing persons, each one last seen boarding the midnight train to Ravenwood. A chill ran down Clara's spine as she realized the extent of the mystery. She had to get off this train, but how? She turned to leave the room and nearly collided with the old man from the station. His eyes were wide with fear. You shouldn't be here," he whispered urgently. They'll find you." Who? What's happening?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. The train. It's cursed," the old man said, his voice barely audible. The conductor. He's a ghost, doomed to drive this train for eternity, collecting souls. You have to find a way off before it's too late." Clara's mind raced. She had to warn the others, find a way to stop the train. But as she turned to leave, the door slammed shut. The room grew cold, and the lights dimmed. Clara felt a presence behind her, and she spun around to see the ghostly conductor standing in the doorway, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Leaving so soon, Miss Clara?" he asked, his voice dripping with malice. The journey has just begun." Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she backed away from the conductor. She had to think quickly. Please let me go," as she begged. "I don't belong here." The conductor's expression softened slightly, but his eyes remained cold. "None of us do, Miss Clara. But once you board this train, there's no turning back." Desperation filled Clara. She had to find a way to escape, but the ghostly conductor seemed to anticipate her every move. She glanced around the room, searching for anything that might help her. Her eyes landed on a small dusty book lying on a table. It looked old, with a worn leather cover. She grabbed it and opened it, hoping for some clue. The pages were filled with handwritten notes and diagrams, detailing the history of the train and its curse. Clara skimmed through the book, her eyes catching on a particular passage. To break the curse, one must confront the conductor and reclaim the stolen souls. Clara's hands shook as she closed the book. She had to confront the conductor, but how could she defeat a ghost? She needed help. She turned to the old man, who had been watching her with a mixture of fear and hope. Do you know how to stop him?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. The old man nodded slowly. There is a way, but it won't be easy. You need to find the pendant of the first victim. It's hidden somewhere on this train. With it, you can trap the conductor's spirit and break the curse." Clara nodded, determination filling her. "I'll find it. But I can't do this alone. Will you help me?" The old man hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I'll do what I can. But be careful. The conductor won't give up his power easily." With a plan in mind, Clara and the old man left the room and began their search. The train seemed to stretch on endlessly, each carriage filled with more eerie silence and ghostly apparitions. Clara's heart raced as they moved from one carriage to the next, searching for any sign of the pendant. Hours seemed to pass as Clara and the old man searched the train. The atmosphere grew heavier, the air colder with each step. Clara's hope began to wane, but she refused to give up. They reached the last carriage, a storage car filled with old luggage and forgotten belongings. Clara rummaged through the piles of bags and boxes, her hands growing numb from the cold. Finally, she spotted a small ornate box hidden beneath a pile of old clothes. She opened it with trembling hands, revealing a beautiful silver pendant, its surface etched with intricate patterns. This must be it," Clara whispered, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. The old man nodded, his eyes wide with apprehension. "And now we need to confront the conductor. Be ready for anything." With the pendant in hand, Clara and the old man made their way back through the train, the atmosphere growing more oppressive with each step. They reached the conductor's carriage, the air thick with tension. Clara took a deep breath and stepped inside. The ghostly conductor stood at the far end of the carriage, his eyes glowing with an eerie light. He smiled coldly as Clara approached, the pendant clutched tightly in her hand. "You think you can stop me, Miss Clara?" he asked, his voice echoing through the carriage. This train is mine. I will collect your soul, just as I have collected the others." Clara's hands shook, but she stood her ground. "I won't let you. This ends now." With a cry of determination, Clara held up the pendant. The conductor's eyes widened in surprise, and he recoiled as if struck. A powerful force seemed to emanate from the pendant, filling the carriage with a blinding light. Clara felt a surge of energy, and she channeled it into the pendant, focusing all her willpower on breaking the curse. The conductor let out a scream, his form flickering and dissolving in the light. The train shuddered, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as the conductor's spirit was trapped within the pendant. Clara felt a sense of relief wash over her as the light faded, leaving the carriage bathed in a gentle golden glow. Clara stood in the now peaceful carriage, the pendant still clutched in her hand. She looked around, expecting to see the old man, but he was gone. The other passengers, too, had disappeared, leaving Clara alone in the carriage. She felt a pang of sadness, but also a sense of accomplishment. She had broken the curse and freed the trapped souls. The train began to slow, the landscape outside shifting from the dark, stormy night to a bright, sunny morning. Clara felt a sense of peace as the train pulled into a small, quaint station. She stepped off the train, breathing in the fresh, crisp air. As she walked away from the train, Clara looked back one last time. The ancient locomotive stood silent, its once ghostly appearance now serene. She knew that the train's curse had been broken, and its passengers finally free. Clara continued her journey, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She had faced her fears and emerged victorious. The memory of the ghost train and its haunting journey would stay with her forever, a reminder of the strength and courage she had found within herself. And as the sun rose higher in the sky, Clara walked towards her future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she had the power to overcome them.